Hello everybody, this is Lucy and today we're going to make a little fairy cottage that I call violets on the roof. So I made this violet pattern and I just think it makes the cutest little fairy cottage. You can use any of the fairy houses in the challenge, in the Whimsical Fairy House Challenge for this design. All the windows and doors fit each of the house. So if you want to make a circular version with the violets on the roof, the circular pattern works. You can use the hexagon. This is the hexagon shaped pattern. And I even made a smaller pattern so that if you have the Cricut Joy, you can use that. It's just shorter so that it's easier to cut out with the regular Cricut Joy. It also works with the Cricut Joy Extra. This pattern is a little bit too large and it doesn't exactly work with the Cricut Joy, but the violets work with all of the other patterns. And we're going to start off briefly going to Cricut Design Space to show you how to do the pattern, and then we'll go to construction. I've pulled up Cricut Design Space on my laptop computer so I can show you a little bit about the files. Let's go to New Project, New Project. Then I'm going to upload. I'm going to upload the image, browse, right in the middle. Go to my overloaded desktop. Violets for the Fairy House is what I've named the file, Violets for the Fairy House. And this is the SVG, open. And Cricut tells me, wow, that's a large image. So it may take a moment, but it actually handles it fine. We're going to continue with the button in the lower right-hand side. And we're going to image details screen, which I ignore. Let's go to upload. And here's my file. As I usually do, I'm going to reduce the size on the screen just so I can see everything. There, I think it's got everything. So now I'm going to ungroup in the layers panel over on the right hand side. Ungroup. This is a flower. It's clearly not a flower. It's the leaf. It's based on the shape of violet leaves, and you can use that as the base. I actually had another base I already had painted, so I'm just going to ignore that. Here's my 1-inch square for scale. We don't need that. I'm going to delete it. And I really like this leaf as my door, so I'm going to put this in the kind of the reject pile. And then these are the different sizes of the violets. And at first I thought these little ones were probably too small to be useful, but I really like them as filler on the roof. Filler on the roof. Yeah. So anyway, I ended up cutting them out and used like all of them. So I didn't use as many of the large ones. These are the leaf pieces, and I've grouped them so that they'll fit on a. I've grouped each of these sets of flowers and leaves so that they'll fit on a 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock. So you actually don't need nearly as many leaves, or at least I didn't. So you can delete some or ungroup them and just use a few. The fairy cottage has 4 windows on it, and the circular fairy cottage also has 4 windows, but the hexagon shaped fairy house only has 5 windows. So anyway, I usually cut extra just because sometimes windows don't cut, sometimes the panes don't cut out very well. And the same thing for the windows that go in the center. So you can choose, to duplicate more violets if you're going to make a lot of houses, or you really want to decorate the base heavily. This takes a long time to cut out, largely because of the small flowers. They just take a little while. And I didn't time it, but, I mean, it was like 20 minutes or something. It really took some time. Since I'm not using these two files, I usually group them and hide them. And because of the cuts on the violets and the tiny windows, I cut my cardstock on the setting cardstock for intricate cuts. I thought that worked. It worked really well. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that it is a large file, does take a little time, and just kind of explain what the pieces are. Alrighty, now let's go to construction. Now I've got all the pieces ready for this version is called the Fairy Cottage, and the Fairy Cottage with violets on the roof. And these are simply purple cardstock, and I painted the center of the windows yellow. That way, when I line up the windows on, they'll fit. I mean, they'll look good. And let's see, this is the door. So because it's a very similar color to the background of the Fairy Cottage, I edged each piece with a little bit of darker green, and then obviously a darker green to make the veins stand out on the violet window. This is what I call the truncated base. I just kind of cut off the back because it's easier to stand your, to put your little house somewhere if you don't have all this stuff behind it. So that's what that is for. This is the base, roof, and then there's some little leaves. Not sure if I'm going to use them or not. And I made really, really tiny violets. I'm not sure if I'm going to use them either, but maybe they'll fill in, or I can like line something. We'll see how it goes. Alrighty, so those are the main components for this particular Fairy Cottage. I'm going to use tacky glue, quick dry tacky glue, to adhere the roof on. And then I'm going to use Bearly Art Glue for the lighter things for the cardstock. So I think what we'll do is start off with putting the roof on. Now I always bend it just a little bit, not really fold it, but I just kind of gently bend the fibers of the roof so it will adhere to this curve. And the other thing I forgot is my painter's tape. I really think you have to have painter's tape to get this curve to adhere to the shape of the house. So I'm going to pull off some pieces of painter's tape, have them ready. And I forgot to paint a chimney. So I'm just going to leave off the chimney. It may look naked without it, but we'll see. So I'm applying the tacky glue. And one thing I wanted to show you, okay, this is my new bottle, the full bottle. This is the empty bottle. So when this gets really empty, I'm going to save this tip, and this, I'm going to apply it to this bottle. So, because it really makes a difference when you can stand your glue bottle, head down. It's so much easier to glue, especially with a thick glue. If your glue's not real thick, but these glues are very thick and a little bit hard to squeeze, so I think it really helps to have this kind of top, so I just save it each time. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to center it over the house, or, sometimes I make the overhang in the front a little more generous than in the back because it doesn't matter in the back. So and then I kind of hold it down on the arch. I get my piece of tape and I anchor it, and I kind of hold it with my thumb on one side, and then I pull pretty firmly to the other side. And do that again on the other side of the roof. Hold it with my thumb and pull pretty firmly. If you pull too tight, you lift the roof up. But see, I think you can see that the tip matches up pretty well. Hold it down there for a minute, and I'll let it adhere, and then we'll start decorating. We can go ahead and glue the door piece together. I didn't add a doorknob to this, but one thing I do sometimes is get a tiny brad and poke it through and let it kind of function as a doorknob. Put some glue on and get the background piece. I think it's a very cute door. Let me see if I've got a tiny brad. I found a tiny brad, and I've got a hole punch with a little tip to it. So I'll show you what I mean about using a brad as a doorknob. The fairies have to get into their house. A little tiny hole. Now our door has a doorknob. It's clearly a door. Now you know it's a door. Still letting the roof dry. Then we'll start applying the flowers. All right, I think it's stuck on well enough. So now we can start decorating the little house. The paint color is called Shaded Lilac. I like the contrast with the violets. And these aren't very fancy violets. I just kind of looked at violets and realized, it's 5 petals. The top 2 petals are bigger, so it goes like that. But it's nothing fancy. You could make them fancy, which we will see later in a different project. Now I think I'm going to start by just adding violets to the roof using my trusty Bearly Art glue. And I'm going to try this. Just apply some blobs down here. Maybe that'll give them a little time to get tacky. And I think what I'm going to do is kind of start off with bigger ones at the bottom and then progress to smaller ones. Put my hand right in the glue. I'm going to use my little stylus to help me. Okay, let's see what we want for the next row. So this is like size down. Let's see what a little leaf looks like. Kind of tucked in there. I like it. Just random glue blobs. We'll see how it goes. And I'm going to do the same thing like I did for the other side. I'm going to save some of the bigger pieces for the other side of the roof, so it won't look too lopsided. And now it looks like we're already getting down to the smaller ones. I didn't cut as many that are on your sheet, on your pattern. I thought that was probably too many, but maybe we're going to need them. I painted yellow centers. I just like the way that looks, especially for the little tiny ones. It's hard to glue little tiny centers there. I like the little random violets. I think it looks really good. Okay, let's see from the front. It's going to look good. There's our door. I'm going to glue these on last, but I'm just showing you the door and the windows. Oh, I like this. I like this violet fairy house. And I wonder if I don't think these leaves are going to show very well. Let's go back to the other side. Get our flowers on. Again, start with the larger ones at the bottom. At first, I thought the little ones were just way, way, way too small to be useful, but I like them for filling in. And the gradation. I like them starting out bigger and then moving smaller. Okay, that's it. I think I can glue the door on without damaging anything. In other words, without pulling off some of the violets I've already got on the roof. Okay. Kind of smear it around so it will adhere. Now I'm going to add some glue around the window. And apply some windows. One window on each of the sides. The little hole in the back is for lighting, if you want to, put a LED light string inside or just put it in front of a light source. It's left over from the traditional Putz houses, so I always do that, kind of honoring the Putz houses, because that's what got me started making little houses. I saw those on a Martha Stewart wreath, and I'm like, ooh, that looks like fun crafting. Okay, now I'm going to add the kind of brighter yellow in the center. Okay, let me put it down. This is a little bit trickier, for me anyway, as a clumsy person. Part of it is that I always have a little bit of glue on my fingers, and then when I move my finger, the piece adheres to my finger. It's a happy little house. I just love to make the paper fairy houses. Okay, so that's the house that's done. I'm not going to glue it to the base until these are much drier, because I have to apply some pressure to get it to adhere. So, I have to really kind of grab it. So I'm going to let them dry, and then I'll glue it to the base, and I'll show it to you.